All right, it's time for the serious stuff. 1e4. Let's get started. We're going to start off with the French, which is my favourite opening. So e4, e6. And actually here, Koivisto does something a little bit odd. It plays knight c3. Koivisto's got a strange fetish for doing this. Against 1 c6, it wants to play 2 knight f3, not 2 d4. So one of those funny things, really. But anyway, after knight c3, d5, it plays d4, knight f6, and then it plays bishop g5, which is quite interesting. I mean, Komodo Dragon wanted to play e5 in this position, but bishop g5 is interesting. The only slightly upsetting thing about it is that it really does play a very quiet line against this line of the French. It just swaps everything off on f6 and plays knight f3. I mean, I've had this, funnily enough, as black in Barcelona 2011 against a pretty strong player, 2500 plus player. But I really thought that White was just aiming for a draw when he was playing like this, and I was taking all sorts of risks in order to try and play for something a bit more. Koivisto considers these positions to be pretty promising for White. They are a slight advantage, but you know, I don't really think that they're anything spectacular. But yeah, maybe interesting just to try out against the right sort of black player. Could be interesting. But anyway, that's a slightly unusual choice in any case. 4 bishop g5 in the 2 knight c3 variation against the French. Against the Caro-Kann, we are once again heading for the advance. So yeah, both Komodo Dragon and Koivisto want to play the advance. Slightly strange move order here, but it soon transposes. Actually, yeah, after bishop f5, d4, e6, bishop e2 is what Koivisto wants. Actually, Koivisto doesn't want black to play c5, which is the sharpest move. We saw Komodo Dragon analysing that one. It prefers knight e7, castles, and knight d7 for black. And well, we follow theory for quite a way here. Knight comes to b3. We play this idea a4 to a5, very typical idea for White. Just I mean, you start off trying to gain space with e5 in the centre on move 3, and you keep on going, you know, on the queen side and also on the king side as well. Bishop e7 takes, castles, queen e2. You see that this move a4 to a5 has stopped black from playing knight b6 to d5, so it just means that you can make the central break without worrying too much. And well, this knight might be able to get back via e7 to d5, but it'll take a while because the bishop's on e7 at the moment. Rook c8, bishop e3, and this was a game Fagin against Ruck, Germany 2013, and worked out quite well for White. Here Koivisto wants to play b6, which is quite interesting, just challenging that pawn on a5 and trying to get a little bit more space. Bishop d3, rook c7, rook d1, bishop b4, and well, takes, knight c1, knight e7. You can see the bishop on b4 as well as attacking a5. It's made some space for this knight to come round to d5. Koivisto thinks that White does still have a pleasant edge in this position, but it's not a bad defensive idea at all. So quite interesting, that one. In actual fact, Koivisto after e5 prefers c5, which is the Henkin Arkle, and yeah, we've had quite a few games on the Game Changer channel with AlphaZero against Stockfish 8, because Stockfish 8 was also very keen on this line against the advance. And well, actually, Koivisto plays a system that AlphaZero also tried. Knight c6, takes, and bishop d3. And then in general, you're just going to go castles, queen e2, knight d2 to f3, play c3, b3, h4. You know the drill. And yeah, lot of potential play there. Actually, Koivisto was looking at black playing a5, and then it came up with something quite unusual here. Knight c3, e6, knight a4, knight e7, castles, knight g6, f4, rook b8, b3, bishop e7, bishop e3, which was pretty nice, really. And the idea was actually to take on g6, swap off that knight, and then to play a move like bishop c5, and just well, just trying basically to leave black with a bad light squared bishop there. Yeah, again, just a small edge, 0.53 for White according to Koivisto, but yeah, definitely an interesting system against this line. Things get really spooky though against not e6 but against c5. So like a lot of engines, Koivisto thinks that the Najdorf is Black's best Sicilian, or at least the best Sicilian that that Black can reach without really giving White much chance to avoid it. However, the amazing thing here is that Koivisto, after spending a very long time, actually likes the move bishop d3. And actually, I've seen Stockfish also being keen on this move, bishop d3. I mean, in my day, I think it was played against me once by Stuart Conquest, but you know, Stuart was always playing. He's an English grandmaster. My generation, always playing, you know, rather unusual stuff, always thinking stuff up the board. So I didn't really think twice about it. But in general, you know, somebody playing bishop d3 against you in the old days, that was a sign that they didn't know any theory at all. The bishop normally goes to either to e2 or to c4, like Fischer always did. But bishop d3, e5, knight d2, knight c6 castles, bishop e6, king h1, bishop e7, f4 is the idea. And well, you know, this the fact that the knight can come round to e2, it means after f4 you take back with a knight, and you're eyeing this d5 square. Not stupid at all. Bishop e3 castles a4, and this is actually following a game Caro-Kann against Fiddler, which Sergei Caro-Kann won. So yeah, in that game Black went rook c8. Here Koivisto suggests queen a5, bishop g1, rook c8, takes, knight e2. Very nice idea this, just bringing the knight round either to d4 to f4 to attack this e6 square. d5 from Black, takes, queen d5, queen h3. We've got possibilities of knight f4, knight d4. It's a slight advantage for White, this 0.25 according to Koivisto. But interesting. I mean, I think this bishop d3 move probably has got quite a bit of potential that you maybe don't realise. So okay, that was e4 c5. Something very interesting as well is that I was wondering, you know, what about 2 knight c6? What if you force Black to do that? Now, in actual fact, all of the engines want to play the Rossolimo. And the funny thing is that for me is that my engines normally prefer this approach. Always feels like you're creating lots of holes on the dark squares potentially, but the engines like this a lot. And well, they try and plug their holes with d3, queen c7, castles, knight e7, rook e1, e5. That's the big idea. You know, just getting ready to play d6, knight g6, bishop e7, and have a big centre there. So c3, this is actually a novelty, this move, e5. There was a previous game, Grover Lupulescu, where Black went knight g6, and then you go e5, you know, and then suddenly the holes, you know, on the dark squares seem a little bit more serious. But after e5, c3, knight g6, takes, d6. Bishop e3, bishop e7, knight c3 castles, takes, queen c2. Well, White's got a slight advantage here. You know, I mean, this pawn on c6 is weak, and there's a nice square on c5 in front of it. But on the other hand, Black does have the 2 bishops. You know, so it's nice structural advantage for White. I'd be very happy to play the White side, but Black apparently isn't too bad there. So why doesn't, after knight c6, why doesn't Koivisto want to play d4? It's the same story as all the engines. They just don't want to face the Sveshnikov. Amazing to think, you know, that back in the early 1970s when, Gennady Timoshenko and Evgeny Sveshnikov, you know, really started investigating this system very seriously, that they were thought to be crazy, and now actually you know, the engines consider it to be a very, very good line, and actually don't want to face it at all. The main line that Koivisto has is this one, a6 knight a3, b5 knight d5. It's the quiet positional approach, just swapping on f6, and then just maneuvering around the d5 square, and also attacking the queen side as well. Actually following a4 is varies a little bit. There was a game Nepomniachtchi against Saric 2021 where Jan played knight cb4, castles, and g3. This is a4, takes, bishop c4. It's quite well known, this line. Knight cb4, bishop d7. We take the pawn, takes, castles, queen b6, and actually a correspondence game ended in a draw in a couple more moves after this. Koivisto wants bishop c4 in this position, king h8, h3, f5, takes, b3 takes, rook a6, little bit of fancy stuff there, but well, with some accurate play, black manages to keep the balance. You know, we're going to try and go e3. White always seem to end up winning a pawn, but it never seems to be enough. But maybe an interesting idea here, just to well, to do a little bit more than at least agree a draw straight away. But that's why the Sveshnikov. That's the reason why you know, the engines don't play d4 against 2 knight c6. Now, of course, actually, black can try and reach the Sveshnikov through another move order. This is a move order that well, a player that I seconded back in the 90s played the Sveshnikov a lot. He always wanted to play this move order. So taking like this, going knight c6, knight c3, and then knight f6. The idea being that you can go knight db5, but then after d6, bishop f4, e5, bishop g5, a6, we're back in a Sveshnikov. But actually, well, like a lot of elite modern players, Koivisto doesn't want this, and it wants to avoid it and play this line. Yeah, this is again a slight advantage for white. Actually, Koivisto's main line has been played all the way down to move 24 in an elite game, Caro-Kann against Vidit. F5, knight f2, bishop a6, king f3. The king going for walkies, but well, the centre's fairly blocked, so hard to get at it. Takes, exchanging on c5, actually just yeah, stops black from playing c5 and opening the long diagonal. Queen d6, queen b6, b3, bishop b7, rook d1, c5, king e3. The king's still perfectly safe. And, you know, we've got this this ending here where white wins a pawn, but black is very, very active indeed. And, well, knight d3, rook d8, rook g1. This is the game Caro-Kann Vidit, and here Vidit played bishop e4. Koivisto wants rook d4 first of all. g3, bishop e4, knight c1, knight c6. And, well, considers that in this position that white has a 0.35 advantage, but black's obviously very, very active. You wouldn't be at all surprised if this ended in a draw. So, okay, that's c5. Let's have a little look at e5. Not the Berlin, but some other lines. Funnily enough, after f4 takes knight f3, Koivisto likes knight f6, and we saw this. The Komodo Dragon was very keen on knight f6, although it later switched to Fischer's system. But knight f6 is what Koivisto wants to play, and yeah, it's looking at this line: takes, knight takes, bishop b5 check, knight c6, castles takes, bishop d6, queen e2, bishop e6, and considers that that it's a slight edge for black, minus 0.62. So yeah, knight f6. Hadn't realised how yeah, that this was really you know, a major system, but the engines are very, very keen on it. Now, how about after knight f3? What if we get a Petrov? Well, this is actually very, very interesting because I don't know whether you'll recognise this line, but it might just ring a bell. So this is the main line that Koivisto thinks. So castles, rook e1. We go bishop f5, c4, c6. Queen b3, queen d7, and then this line: takes, knight c3 takes, bishop f5 takes, bc, b6, queen b5, queen d7, and a4. And this is actually the line that Magnus Carlsen tried against Jan Nepomniachtchi in one of the earlier games of the World Championship in Dubai 2021. And yeah, Jan was incredibly well prepared, and after queen b5 takes a5, knight h4, g6, g4, knight d7, knight g2, rook fc8. They'd actually analysed this position already and assessed it perfectly, you know, as being completely equal, which was not particularly obvious, it must be said, not at first glance. And yeah, this is also Koivisto's line, but yeah, obviously hard to find a real plus against the Petrov. But yeah, at least Magnus's approach gets the seal of approval from Koivisto. After knight f3, knight c6, Italian game. This is obviously heading into the Berlin. Italian game also quite interesting. Funnily enough, most engines want to play knight f6 here, but Koivisto wanted bishop c5, and this was quite interesting. d3, knight f6, castles a6, h3, d6, c3, castles a4. You know, I don't really have a good grip on Italian game theory. I mean, all the games look a little bit the same to me, which is obviously not the correct approach or at all. But yeah, simply I think it's only if you're really a professional that you really want to get into the subtleties of all these move orders. But what was quite interesting was that this is Koivisto's main line: knight d2, bishop e6, takes. This is amazing to me, I have to say. I would never have thought that taking on the e6 would be a good structure for white. But knight f1, knight h5, b4, knight f4, rook a2, queen e8, king h2, queen f7. And this is actually a game of Ali Reja's against Radjabov from the 2022 candidates, so just recently. So and this is Koivisto's main line in the Italian. And Ali Reja played bishop e3 in this position, which is very logical. Koivisto wants to play rook b2, presumably just going for b5, and knight g6, king g1, knight f4, takes, knight h2, king h1, g3, and some more manoeuvring, and eventually b5, and then d4 from white. I mean, this is what white's aiming for eventually. Again, not a massive advantage for white, but I was quite struck that Ali Reja, played this exact main line of Koivisto's up to move 15 there. Really quite amazing. Just to give us a little bit of a change, just imagine that the Berlin never existed, and that black still played the Lopez with a6. What do we think? What is Koivisto's main line here? Actually, Koivisto's main line, through a slightly odd move order, is the Marshal, of course, and then the anti-Marshal with h3, and bishop b7, d3, d6, a3. So, this is, again, all this maneuver, knight b8, d7, very typical in the Lopez. Once you've played a6 and b5, then, the knight on c6 is not super fantastic. It's got, more possibilities coming round to d7. It also doesn't block the light-squared bishop. And this is actually a game of Hikaru Nakamura against Magnus Carlsen in 2020, and queen h5 was played. Koivisto thinks that this is a little bit better for white, but it's a pretty small advantage, really. Just 0.43 Koivisto. Koivisto is always a little bit more on the optimistic side than Stockfish, so just a small edge for white. But again, interesting. Marshal would be its main choice. I think the anti-Marshal with h3 is the best reply. Moving on a little bit further, the Scandinavian. Nothing too amazing there. We can just take, knight c3, and then queen d6 is Koivisto's main move, not queen a5 like Komodo Dragon. And then we're getting knight f3, knight f6, d4, c6. And then it just wants this very quiet line, takes, g3, bishop e7, castles, knight e4, takes. I mean, there's a recent game of Biera against Nihal in 2021 with this line, and Koivisto considers this to be 0.87 for white, so just a nice advantage. In principle, space advantage, two bishops, nothing wrong with that. Against queen a5, d4, knight f6, knight f3, bishop f5, and then not the bishop c4 line. It likes the bishop d2 line, c6, bishop c4. There, queen d8, knight g3, and this doesn't look too bad at all. Bishop e4 is the line it expects, bishop e3, and again white's got the two bishops and a slight space advantage. Very decent line for white, and not too complicated to learn either. Going on a little bit further, we get into the modern and the Pirc with d6. It's quite intriguing, actually. I mean, so far both Komodo Dragon and Koivisto, neither of them want to play g6. They both want to play e5 and transpose back into the Philidor, and just play this, this normal quiet line, castles, h3, queen c7, rook e1, and just play it that way. And here Koivisto wants to play h6, move the knight round to f8. And g6, and just play super solidly. So not bad, but quite surprising. I never would have thought that the Philidor would be considered more promising than the Pirc with g6. Komodo Dragon wanted to play the very interesting bishop f4 here. Koivisto goes for actually the 150 attack. So queen d2, castles, bishop h6, and c5, castles, takes, knight c6, h4 is its main line. and then it just wants to bail out, basically, swap off queens. But Koivisto thinks that this position is an advantage for white, which it undoubtedly is. You know, I mean, we've got possibilities to expand, I think, on both sides, a4, a5, h5. Also got that pawn on e7 to attack. It's not a huge advantage, but yeah, definitely an advantage for white. Against g6, then d4, bishop g7, knight c3 is Koivisto's main idea, and basically just wants to transpose back into normal lines of the Pirc, or after something like c6, which I've played as black, it wants to play this move h3, which is always really annoying. That stopping after d5, you just play a move like knight f3 and then bishop g4 isn't possible. So that's a pretty annoying move. And after d6, then we get f4, b5, knight f3, and just considers white to be a bit better after bishop d3 and castles. And then finally, I think for this summary, we've got the Alekhine with knight f6. Now, Komodo Dragon liked the 4 pawns, which I can really sympathise with, but actually takes, knight c3, bishop e7, bishop d3 is Koivisto's favourite. And this has actually been played by Hikaru Nakamura as well, and it's well known to be a rather awkward system. Wouldn't it be nice if you could play a move like knight b4 and knight takes c4, but queen a4 check just picks up the knight. So bishop g4, bishop e3, bishop f6, you go f3, just block the bishop out, castles, and bishop f2 takes, and b3. And again, Koivisto just thinks that this is a nice space advantage for white. You know, good play for white, and well, I think that's completely correct, really. I mean, white is just a little bit better, and black doesn't have that much counterplay at all. So there we are. That was one e4. Found that quite interesting. In particular, I have to say, the thing that that interested me was, well, obviously, I think how keen the engines are on the Sveshnikov if they get to it, but also the fact that Koivisto was advocating bishop d3 against the Najdorf. I find that very interesting, especially since I have to wait to see what depth Stockfish reached on that. But Stockfish was also very keen on 6 bishop d3. After a very large search. So very, very interesting there. Okay, well, that was e4. In the next video, we're going to be having a look at 1d4, d5.